Is national carry reciprocity a good idea? President-elect Donald Trump added this initiative to his second-term agenda. It's been a hard-fought battle by the pro-2A community for many years. There is no doubt that progress has been made, with more than half of the 50 states adopting constitutional or permitless carry for eligible citizens. Eligible means that you are someone who otherwise meets the legal criteria to get a weapons carry permit in the state you reside in. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It clearly states that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The United States Supreme Court, in charge of interpreting the Constitution in accordance with U.S. law, made it clear that the Second Amendment is an individual right, not reserved only for government-sanctioned military bodies. The Second Amendment also doesn't distinguish between individual states and political parties. So you would think that you ought to be able to exercise that right freely, no matter where you are in the 50 states. However, we are far from being able to, as some states refuse to extend that right to their own residents, let alone visitors. So the fight continues. But let's put all that aside and imagine that national carry reciprocity was made into law. Will it be a good thing? The anti-gun community claims it will be a disaster for public safety. They believe that allowing just anybody to carry a firearm will lead to more crime and negligent violence. The pro-gun community, on the other hand, believes the opposite, of course. More good guys with guns are a deterrence, and the Second Amendment is a God-given right rather than a right given by the government. Therefore, one should not have to ask the government permission to keep and bear arms anywhere in the 50 states. Well, who's right? Which school of thought do you lean towards? Here's what I think. There are over 300 federal gun laws and over 20,000 state and local laws in place already. Some, in my opinion, make sense, such as not allowing convicted violent felons to possess guns. But many are ineffective and utterly stupid, such as preemption laws that don't allow gun owners to transport the legally owned firearms across county lines within the same state. Many of these laws, even the sensible ones, are poorly enforced, if at all, during the best of times. If all these laws were enforced effectively, violent criminals couldn't care less about abiding by them. Criminals are not law-abiding. That's why they're called criminals. So adding more laws and restrictions will only impact the law-abiding gun owner, who isn't the problem to begin with. So why restrict them from being able to transport and carry their firearm anywhere in the country? You think restricting magazine capacity and making suppressors items that require permission to own will stop violent criminals and terrorists from using any magazine they want or ask permission to use a suppressor? Not to mention, they'll carry whatever they want, anywhere they want, whether you like it or not. They're already practicing national carry reciprocity. They don't check their guns with TSA at the airport before a flight. They don't care whether their final destination has reciprocity with their state of residence. And they don't care if where they are has constitutional carry in place or not. However, as law-abiding citizens, we have to jump through hoops to transport and carry firearms in permissible locations and under strict conditions. That leaves us vulnerable and often defenseless when we are in a so-called blind spot where having a weapon on our person or within reach isn't legal. That, in my opinion, isn't right. And why I believe that national carry reciprocity would be beneficial. It would even the playing field of good guys with guns versus violent derelicts and elevate the degree of deterrence and consequence for violent criminals. A legal gun owner should not be defenseless anywhere he or she travels. It doesn't mean that we should not take the right and responsibility seriously and get educated and trained regularly. Carrying a firearm randomly just because it's our right without adequate training makes us a liability more than an asset. If you watch enough YouTube videos, you can see that there are many wonderful instructors and gun owners who take this responsibility seriously and have the right mindset and approach to gun ownership. We need more of these roaming around our nation, giving us that extra edge of safety. However, you also see many idiots who think they know better and decide to skip the responsible part of the equation and end up hurting themselves and others. These gun owners are a liability, and the ones that give more ammunition, no pun intended, to the anti-gun community in their fight to limit our right to carry freely within the land of the free and the home of the brave. I'd love to know which side of the debate you're on, so please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and watch the next video right here. Train hard, often, and safely, and I'll see you at the range.